Welcome to Universal Talk. On today's show, we ponder energy healing. Let's present the case. First, we must consider the possibility that everything perceived and not perceived with the five senses may be nothing more than energy. If this is true, then can a trained individual in the art of healing help facilitate or even assist in the healing process through the manipulation of energy? For the past few weeks, we have spoken about energy. What if energy healing was nothing more than the manipulation of energy to accomplish a desired effect, such as healing? What if a practitioner of energy medicine could do this very thing? And finally, as stated last week, is this what Jesus used in order to heal others? In a moment, we'll have Reverend Linda M. Martin, Mh.D., on the show. She is a doctor of metaphysics and an ordained minister. She is certified as a Reiki master and teacher, a spiritual healer, color and sound practitioner, registered spiritual counselor, and a spiritual medium. She has degrees from Delphi University, the Patricia Hayes School of Inner Sense Development, and the Arthur Ford Academy in McKaysville, Georgia. She is recognized and registered with the International Registry of Spiritual Healers. She offers vibrational energy healing and crystal sound therapy to reestablish harmony within the physical and etheric bodies. She also offers divinely channeled spiritual guidance through which she channels the divine wisdom of your higher self to assist you on your life's path. Reverend Martin has offices located in southwestern Pennsylvania where she offers phone consultations and a variety of classes and workshops to enlighten and inspire those on their life's journey. Reverend Linda Martin, welcome to Universal Talk.
Hi, Joe. Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Great. So can you tell the viewers what brought you to this place right here and right now?
This place right here, right now, it seemed to be the way my life was leading. I was blessed to be raised by a spiritually aware mother, and I understood the power of my thoughts. And first, working right there and understanding that our thoughts are energy, and they do have a life of their own. And many people get into trouble with their thoughts and how their thoughts may direct them, overtake them. And so understanding the power of that energy is first and foremost, I think, for anybody trying to move in the path of healing and trying to receive healing.
Right. Yeah, I've spoken in the past many times about thought becomes reality.
Definitely.
And what you think and the intent that you put forth in that thought, and how much that you devote your time and effort towards that thought. And some people may call that prayer, but the way I describe it is in a church when many people come together to pray for a certain intent, maybe healing somebody else or praying for Mother Nature or whatever. It's actually the people, all the people combined within that one particular moment in time with the same intent is what creates the miracle, not so much of the church itself. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. As Jesus said, where two or more are gathered, that's where the power lies. That's why that verse is in the Bible.
Right. So some of the things that are in the Bible, do you think, some of it's misrepresented?
Definitely. I think the Bible itself is a very metaphysical works that, when taken literally or out of context, it can be confusing. People might not understand the meaning. One thing I do try to do with some of my clients in some of the classes is we may take phrases of the Bible and look at what it really means, and it kind of opens their eyes, and it starts to make sense.
Right. Yeah, a lot of times you can bring things back to simplicity, and a lot of times we try to rationalize and make it more than what it really is. But if you break it down and make it more simple, a lot of times it's more understandable and more believable, actually.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So aside from the current knowledge of healing, like years ago, I mean, this is in the 80s and maybe early 90s, I saw a program on television that showed what they called therapeutic touch. And what they did is they put a person behind a wall, and they put their arm through, and they had a laceration. And they had another person through the same wall with another laceration. And what they did was they tried to manipulate, the energy field around the person, and for the effect of increasing in the healing process. And what they found was that not only did the person that they did this therapeutic touch with heal faster, but they could actually measure the helper T cells combined in this particular area to prevent or to create this change. So this was back in the late 80s, early 90s. I saw this program, and then of course they called it therapeutic touch, but now I've become more and more aware of the healing energies about the aura that's around the body, the energy centers of the body. And what I like to do on the show is talk about the mind-body-spirit connection.
Yes.
Because as a practitioner of healing in any sort, if you leave one out or you disconnect the three, you really don't get the whole picture. So could you speak a little bit about the aura that's around the body or the energy centers and what your view is on that?
Sure. We all definitely have an aura. We have an energy field around us. We are all energy. Even our physical body, even though it may seem solid, it really is energy in motion. And every part of us within us is energy in motion. And our energy field, even though we can't see it with our physical eyes, we can see it intuitively. We're so used living in this 3D dimension of just working from the five senses, the five physical senses that we're all aware of. But in doing energy work, you begin to learn about your inner senses as well, that helps you to look in a different way, see and feel in a different way. And so coming in touch with our energy field helps us to learn a little bit more about ourselves in a different way. Everything that we experience in our physical body first comes through this etheric body. It comes through our emotional body. We really have more than just the energy body. We have our mental body, our emotional body, and all of these things filter what we experience and how we experience it. And if we have trauma, if we have upsets that aren't worked through or healed, and we just kind of hang on and we keep recycling problems over and over again, it wears on our energy centers. We have 7 main chakras that I know you're familiar with, and these chakras are energy vortexes that process the various experiences that we have through this life. And if what we are experiencing is not dealt with in the right way, then our chakras can become out of alignment, out of harmony.
And a lot of times that's what we call dis-ease, the word disease, that's where it comes from. So depending where in the body this dis-ease is at, I really think the body is a guidance system to tell us, hey, look at this area. And not only physically, what is it? You look at the other, the mind-body-spirit connection. You say, is this physical? Is this emotional? Is this spiritual that's going on here? And then when you speak with your client of, the general area where the dis-ease is, they're amazed, they're shocked. Like, how did you know my personal life? Like, how did you know that I was having problems with money and power? And once people understand the chakra centers, and like you said, there's 7 main ones, but really there's way more than that with the body. But generally speaking, just intro to energy, the 7 are really, really important to understand. So one other thing that you mentioned is if you don't get back into balance, something that you're dealing with in the emotional or the chakra centers, what about past, present, future lifetimes? Because a lot of times we look at things in a linear fashion and we have just scratched the surface of time. We, in 3-dimensional time, we see it one way, when actually there's some research that's out there that shows that it's all now, right here, right now. We perceive it with 5 senses, and it's really hard to wrap your head around until you really dig into it, which I'm going to have some guests in the future that talk about time. And so basically bringing it back, do you feel that we bring cellular memories, if you will, from other lifetimes that we have to deal with here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I definitely believe that, and I have seen that. I've seen that in many clients and cases that I've worked with. Just one comment on time, because I must say time, as we know it, is changing and is going to continue to change. Many people think time is moving so much quicker. Well, yes, it is, but it's not going to be what we've always known it to be, and because we are evolving. We are definitely evolving. We're on the threshold of evolving into what could be called homo luminous beings, whereas we need to help lift the lower energies that do get stuck in our chakras and our lower chakras, and lift them so that we can move into this new vibration of being that we are moving into. And one way we do that is by clearing out the stuff that we are holding on to, becoming aware of the secrets that we have within. Mm-hmm. But we do definitely bring things with us from lifetime to lifetime. We have all lived many, many lives that have provided us with many experiences and opportunities. When we come into the physical being again, we pass through our channel that houses our mental emotional body. And in the mental emotional body, that's where we collect all of the baggage that we carry from lifetime to lifetime and store more in this current lifetime.
Right. So do you feel that this is where we are right now in 3D is more of like spiritual growth, like for soul growth? Do you think that people come here with the soul, the mind, body, spirit, with this soul to face some of this baggage that they've had and to try to alleviate it, to lighten them? In effect? Yes,
that's part of what we do need to do as being physical beings, because as I said, it is part of the evolutionary process, and it's important that this be done. The main goal, I think, as humans, is to merge the ego, which is housed in the mental emotional body, with our divinity, and coming into this wholeness, this harmony. And most people just tend to live from their mental emotional selves, which is the ego personality self.
Right. We were talking last week and the week before about this evolution of man. And I know I'd mentioned this in the past, but I think it's important to say with what you're talking about that there's a gap that goes from caveman to current human. And we can't find it in the fossil records. The scientists call it the missing link. And now we're about ready to evolve from current human to superhuman or illuminous humans, however you want to.
Homo luminous.
Okay. And so do you think that things come in cycles as well? Do you think that just like the moon goes around the earth goes around the sun, our planets go around this universe, and some people feel that this black hole in the center of our universe is emitting energy. And, you know, it's just like gravity. Just because we can't perceive it with our five senses doesn't mean it's not there. Mm-hmm. So do you feel that that's something that's coming about with this 2012 phenomenon and all the talk about that?
I feel that, yeah, from what I understand, I feel there is a shift of energy that is occurring because of what's occurring in the universe as well. Mm-hmm. And it affects us. It affects us. We are one with all things. We are all one in God. And if that is the case, how could we not possibly be affected by what the planets are doing, by what the movement that is occurring throughout the universe?
Right. You know, it's really amazing if you really do the research into what, you know, it used to be considered woo-woo and all this crazy stuff, but it all blends together once you start to research astrology and what each planet and when the person was born and time. And I mean, we are so much more than these physical bodies that we know of with our five senses. And a lot of people, you know, don't like to, you know, veer off course, you know, for fear of ridicule, or basically fear is what prevents people from learning about themselves, especially as the full human that we are.
Yes.
And there's so much more to humanity. And, you know, it was an eye-opener for me as well. I mean, I was educated in mainstream medicine, and, you know, I practice family medicine. But, you know, once And I'll just tell you a little story. A physician and myself drove to Bradford, Pennsylvania one time because he happened to be in the ER. He met the psychic that was there. Well, it just so happened, since we were on his 3-hour trek, the psychic said, well, why don't you allow my friend Patty to do some Reiki on you as well? And we're like, what's that, you know? Mm-hmm. Well, when we go out there, we were trying to be, you know, stone-faced and not give anything up, you know, because we're these scientists. Well, we walk in and he had this back pain, and he walked in straight as can be, even though he was having this pain, and the Reiki master came up to him and says, you got a hole in your aura, you having pain, and she pointed right, and he about come off of the table. He's like, how did you know that? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people can tap into some of this energy, and I really think that's what mediums and psychics do. It's what anybody could really do if you practice and you do the research and all this kind of stuff. But my point behind the story is, you know, until I moved out of the current mainstream system of belief, and there again, thought becomes reality, I had no idea that all this was real. But I'll tell you what, if the listeners and the viewers, if they would go out and research instead of just ridiculing and saying, oh, this is a bunch of woo-woo stuff, you're going to find that everything that we've been told is, not everything, but most of what we've been told is just fantasy. It becomes reality. Definitely.
What we think is our reality. It truly is. And Jesus tried to teach that when he was here. Those were his teachings. They may not have been understood at that time, but that's what he was teaching us. And if we live from fear, we're going to be struggling a lot. And many people, because of how society has been, how religions maybe have been to some degree, fear is a part of that. Mm-hmm. And they live their lives through fear. And it's rather sad because they're living for survival without being able to tap into any greater part of them.
Right. And, you know, as you're talking, I'm looking at it again as a holistic approach. And when you speak those words, I'm thinking, well, they're stuck in their root chakra.
Yes.
And they can't experience some of these higher or enlightened things to tap into the God source or God, you know, if they don't raise in their, you know, push out some of this baggage, if you will.
Right.
So once you understand the whole dynamics of the human being by studying, by allowing yourself to open up to the possibilities, then you can see a whole new world and a whole new possibility. And that's why I say I don't preach this and try to make everybody understand it. I always ask, what if? Mm-hmm. I mean, I have my own personal thoughts and beliefs, which, you know, everybody's entitled to that. And I mean, that's why there's freedom of speech and freedom of religion in this country. Yes. So a lot of people have come forth and tried to teach this at various times in history. And of course, because of fear, they were burned at the stake or all kind of other things. And so now, to look back with this new knowing that I have, even to watch different movies like the movie Phenomenon, it's amazing. It's like, oh my God, that's really for real. And people knew about it, and they probably consulted someone like yourself and says, hey, this is what's really going on here. And by virtue of knowing some higher knowledge, that's why it seems mystical, because if you don't have the understanding, it looks like it's fantasy.
Yes. Yes, you're right. You're living from your lower chakra, your root chakra, and many people do need to have that experience in their lifetimes. We've all had lifetimes where we have those experiences because it's part of the growth process to experience all these things. But you also have the option and the opportunity to move beyond that and to understand the fear comes from believing that you are separate. If we believe we are separate, we're going to feel lost. We're going to feel frightened. If a child is lost in the store or in the mall, you know, can't find their mother for a second, you can, you know, feel the panic that would be in that child and the mother for not being able to find them. Well, that's how so many humans are running around on this earth, feeling that God is up there and they are down here, without understanding they are all one. We are one. We are all in all in God, always.
Right. Yeah, another thing is if you look at it in the eyes of energy, then it's not so hard to view if you would picture the body as an energy source, and then you're tapped into everything that's around you, including the earth and the sun, and everything else is just kind of connected. And that's why, I mean, in the Bible, like you say, I mean, all is one. We're all connected. And when we try to separate ourselves, and sometimes that has to do with ego, the ego mind. So the blending is really important. And we had Dr. Nicholas Martin on, and we spoke a lot about ego in his book. And like I talked to him, like I like the mind, body, spirit connection, or, you know, and what we talked about at that time was a lot of people out there right now are calling it New Age stuff. This is old stuff. This has been around forever.
That's what I always say.
And I'm laughing as soon as I hear that this is the New Age woo-woo stuff, you know, phooey. I'm like, this has been around forever. We've just been taught in a certain fashion to say that it's not real. And I mean, it's funny to look at different cultures all over the world that say different things. And, you know, on my radio talk show, I mean, I have people from all over the world, in South Africa and Ecuador and just anywhere and everywhere, Canada. And it's really enlightening to me to see that there's so many people waking up or remembering at this time about who they truly are and what we can do.
Oh, yes. And before society tried to teach us the way of being that people have been following at this point in time, people basically lived from their intuition. We didn't have media, we didn't have, you know, all the things that are available now, and people would have to learn from what they had within, from watching nature, from watching the animals, watching the birds and what they did, and learning, you know, what would be best for them. If they had a stomach ache, they could walk into the woods and find a plant or an herb that would help them and benefit them. And we're just starting to understand that that is our birthright. We are one. We are one with all things, and it is energy. Because it is all energy, we are all one in this energy.
Right.
And it is the energy of love.
Absolutely. So, do you think that the things that we've created ourselves out of ego, such as computer, technology, radio, do you think that distracts us from, like cell phones, do you think it distracts us from tapping into our inner self?
Well, it has the potential to do that if it's misused or overused, but I think it also has the potential to bring us all closer together. Right. I mean, you have opportunities here, you know, you can reach all around the world now because of our technology, so it is a good thing. And, you know, that just goes to show the importance of the ego, as well as is coming into touch with our true spirit, our divinity. Our ego is our driving force. Our ego helps us, when it's in balance, to move in the direction we want to. And when the ego can turn and look for answers from our higher self, which is our divinity, our soul essence, then it can work hand in hand to lead us, you know, on this life without fear, but moving in the process, knowing we are always taken care of.
Absolutely. So do you feel that we're all co-creators? Like we're all made in the image of God, so therefore we are all, in the sense, gods, I guess you could say, but not, I don't want to say that we should be put on a pedestal, but we're all co-creators of this thing called life, and thought becomes reality, everything's energy. So if you start to understand the concepts of all this, then it all starts to make sense, and you're like, oh, okay, so if I think this, and that's why people always say, well, have good intentions, think positively, because, you know, things will work out better for you. Well, there's a basis behind all that. We were never taught any of this, and quite frankly, I don't know of ever being taught anything like this. It's just something that I researched on my own and have come to this new awareness that, what if? And then you start to delve deeper and go into different directions, and then you see that, wow, everything's connected. I mean, there's not one thing that's separate. It's just like, if you talk about one thing, you have to bring in something else to explain it all. So it's really interesting to me how connected everything really is.
Yes, absolutely. And we are definitely creators of every moment that we live. How could we not be? We have the choice of every moment that we live. We have the choice as to how to move through that moment. What we're going to do with each moment in our day. That makes us creators. And it's not about putting ourselves on a pedestal. That comes from the ego being out of balance, that thinks that is thinking in that way. But when we see the magnificence of who we really are from our divinity, it's not about ego. It's not about saying, oh, I'm wonderful, look up to me. It has nothing to do with that. It is connecting with your God source, your God connection, your parent.
Right. So can you speak a little bit about judgment? Like, what do you think that judgment towards others or judging yourself has an influence on raising in these higher vibrational frequencies and understanding yourself? And
oh my, yes. And when I work with people in energy healing, some of the things that we do is pull out these beliefs, these false beliefs, I call them, that they may have been carrying about themselves. And a lot of these things have been seeds that were planted when they were very young. And most people in this society have been fed thoughts and beliefs about themselves that they are unworthy, that that they are selfish. If they think about doing something for themselves before somebody else, even if they're running themselves ragged, they are selfish. And so there's so much, this is all judgment they have about themselves. Right. And so there's a lot for people to get over and understand how to value themselves, how to really begin looking at themselves. And a lot of times along the process, when somebody is trying to learn to meditate, meditation is something I use a lot, and I teach people how to meditate, and I think it's very beneficial. But many times when people try to meditate, they think that they should not have any thoughts come through and just be in stillness, and then they start judging themselves when the thoughts come through. And I see this all the time, and it's helping people to understand, first of all, we cannot stop our thoughts. That's impossible. We learn how to work with it. That's where we learn how to merge the ego, the thoughts, the personality with our divine self. But the judgments that people carry about themselves usually plays outward as well. It plays outward on how they relate to other people. Right.
I just want to go into two little things here real quick, and then we're going to take a break. The one is free will. I want you to discuss that a little bit and what your opinion is on that. And just a little story about myself and meditation. When I started doing this, and I only started this a few years ago, it was difficult for a mindful person that was so into science and in the head, ego, to really break free from, what's been told and the beliefs and all that. And just a side note on meditation is that it's a practice, it's a process. I mean, the first time you do it, your mind is everywhere. And you're trying to listen to, nature and what the person is guiding you through this meditation. And I think it's really important to tell the listeners that it's like you have to practice. It's like anything else. Bring yourself back to the now and listen to what's going on. And after you practice that and you keep doing it over and over, the next thing you know, you're off somewhere. And when you come out, you feel like $1 million and you're like, wow, I actually feel rested. And it's almost like I just slept for 8 hours.
Right. Yes.
So
definitely.
I really think that it's important to mention that, don't give up after your first time. I would go to any bookstore, get anything on meditation that's a guided meditation, and just try it. And the more you do it, the more open you are to things such as hypnosis and other guided meditations as well. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about free will. But we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Take a deep breath. It's all going to be fine. Come on, take a deep breath. Keep on breathing.
Across the country, Americans are rolling up their sleeves to help each other.
Showing true strength of character and kindness and compassion.
Spirit and enthusiasm. Together, we make America strong.
Find out how you can serve, no matter where you are in life, at nationalservice.org.
It's your world.
It's your chance to make it better.
A Apply online at nationalservice.org and answer the President's call to service.
Shriners Hospitals for Children understands the importance of family. That's why they try so hard to make kids feel right at home with a unique, family-centered care approach. They offer world-class medical care, totally free of charge. And there's a Shriners Hospital helping kids from this area. If you know a child with orthopedic problems or severe burns, the Shriners could help. Call this number for more information. Shriners, giving help and hope to kids for over 80 years.
Welcome back to Universal Talk. At this point, I'd like to open up the phone lines. If anybody has any questions for Reverend Linda M. Martin, please give us a call, area code 814-946-8496. And what I'd like to do now is maybe talk about your website, what the viewers can expect to find, and then maybe go into a little bit of this free will.
Sure. And I do have a website. It is lindammartin.net. If you go to my website, you can learn more about me, about the services I offer. Some things can be paid online through there. I also have products on the website. One thing I do, and you'd mentioned earlier, was I work with crystal sound therapy. I work with crystal bowls, which create a powerful vibrational sound that moves through us at a cellular level. And so I do have a CD that's available you can purchase online. It's called Energy Expansion, and it's a half-hour meditation, guided meditation with the bowls. So those are some of the things you will find on the website.
Okay. I have experienced that, actually. When I went to Arizona, I believe it was either Nevada or Arizona. I took 2 trips last year in my research. And one of the things I got to experience was the energy bowl. And I'll tell you what, it is amazing, and it just proves to me that we are energy bodies, even though we can't perceive them with our 5 senses, because it makes your whole body vibrate. When you get to a certain frequency, and then we were talking about this, I think it was last week on the show, Michael Tellinger, he's going around the world talking about his findings in South Africa. And some of what he is talking about is how the ancients used energy and frequency to maybe almost like a laser to cut holes that are perfect precision, and actually levitation to raise these megalithic structures that we can't even move today with our current technology of cranes. So it's amazing what we did know, which is now considered, of course, New Age.
Right.
But really, you know, we think we're so smart right now, but really we're not even tapped into our full potential.
We've forgotten.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's basically why I'm here, is to say, hey, look, there's more to life than what we know.
Yes.
And you don't have to. Everybody's in their perfection. If you don't want to listen to it, that's perfectly fine. But if you have ever had that thought of, you know, I know there's so much more out there. Why are we limited by this? And that's my biggest complaint, is limitations, when I know that we could be so much greater. And that's why this research, and I'm just so devoted into getting this information out and doing more and more research so I can better myself.
Yes, one of my favorite sayings is the only limitations there are the limitations you put upon yourself.
That's it.
And that I truly believe. I also respect where everybody is at.
Right.
You know, if they are not interested, I do not go out and preach to people about what I do. That is something I honor where everybody is on their own path.
Right. You know, it's funny because it's been ingrained into our brains that we have to save everybody. But really, if they're not ready for help, they're not going to come. And it's not even really help. It's really about growth. Yes. And I think that there are so many different soul growths here on this planet at this time. And that's one thing that we're not taught in religions, really, that we come here, we live here one time, you get it right or you go to heaven or hell. Well, I think we live thousands or millions of lives because really there's so much. The universe is so vast, you couldn't possibly learn it all, know it all in one lifetime.
It's a lot of pressure on you to think that.
But it's really refreshing to know that, well, heck, if I don't get it right this time, I can come back and then do it again. And it also helps to know that everybody is in their perfection. Yes. And, you know, people that, of course, you're judging them when you say this. Well, this person has attitude, but you know what? that's where they are in their soul growth at that time. And it takes another opposing force to come in to help raise out of that. And that's why I don't see things as negative and positive. It's more opposition. And it takes somebody of an opposing force sometimes to bring you up. And we're talking about energy, and that's what I mean, raising.
Yes, definitely. The energy sound is extremely powerful. As you said, it moves things.
Right.
It can move things. And one thing I do is crystal bowl workshops, where I hold them at my own place of practice, but I also take them out. I take them out and around, and I have my 7 bowls that I take to various places, and each of the bowls is toned to a musical note, and they each correlate with our 7 chakras, which each of our 7 main chakras resonates to a musical note. And so when I hear back from people that have experienced the crystal ball meditations and the workshops, it's amazing. The people have had physical healings,
right,
and they have had spiritual healings and the emotional healings, and I feel very blessed to be able to have access to the bowls and to use them, because I think the sound and the energy, all of it is just amazing.
Right. So what if we perceive things with 5 senses, and when we find that there's a blockage, a physician has to go and open up the blockage, say in an artery, to allow the flow to go through. So what if we are energy, and what if there's a blockage somewhere along the way? What if someone like yourself, or what if a person can learn to do it by themselves?
Yes.
And through education and trial and error sometimes, but what if they push out the blockages, the negativity, or whatever they have attracted along the way for the day, if they would cleanse themselves and all their chakras to get back into balance, the mind, body, and spirit, is that a possibility?
It's definitely a possibility. It is, as you said, if we work as a whole and not just going in, if you have a blocked artery and you're just focusing on that artery, well, that's one way to start, but you can also go beyond that. Because, as I said earlier, everything that we experience in the physical body first comes through the etheric body, comes through the emotional body. And so there are a lot of other aspects to look at as well.
Right.
What are the emotions that are caught up there? We don't really think that emotions have anything to do with physical disease.
Right.
And really they do. It's all one and the same.
Right.
So the thoughts that we are thinking about this, the emotions that are, have affected this, all have created this physical ailment. And it's not just about going in and say, oh, I'll just stop thinking this. It's really it's doing therapy. It's getting into the root of the issue that is there. Having that person see it, see where it started from, lifting that thought up. When we lift it up, we want to replace it with something else.
Right.
And it's not always an easy process, but it's so cleansing, and it is a necessary process.
Right. So I'm not suggesting that a person just drop their mainstream medicine, their doctor, to go do this. As we're talking about the mind, body, spirit, I'm suggesting, yes, go to your doctor to take care of the physical part of the dis-ease in this area, but also recognize that there are other issues that you have involved. And so many people come into my practice and they're just, I really think that this is such a hustle-bustle world. I mean, there's fast food, there's fast pharmacy, there's fast everything. And I don't think that we were made to run so fast without processing. Sometimes you plant a seed and then you have to mill around and process it, and you get this epiphany like, oh, that's why that was presented to me in that way. But if you allow it to fester and cause disease and not get rid of it, it will cause something maybe to wake you up sometimes in the physicalness and say, hey, I mean, that changes a lot of people's lives. And speaking of change, it also changes DNA. There's a lot of research that's out there that's showing that DNA can be changed through this energy manipulation, if you will.
Right.
I mean, we talked last week or the week before about, we're using 3% of our DNA. Well, what if we would use all of it? The same with our brain. What if we use more than 8 to 10% of our brain?
Right.
Who would we be as humans if we had all that turned on?
Definitely. When we pray, when we meditate, these are things that really affect our brain, the cells in our brains. And when that is affected, it affects our whole body. We can change the structure of who we are if we put our intention there and really, truly move into it. And this doesn't come from moving from an intellectual level, but it comes from that heart level. It comes from that knowing. You can read as many books as you want, and that's how you begin. You learn. It opens the doors for you. But once you read, once you start learning these things, you really need to start bringing it into the heart and seeing how you can actually live it and live that oneness. And when we live that oneness, we can move into healing. And basically moving into healing, working with healing energy, is creating that sacred space that allows healing to occur.
And what do you think about being the example? I mean, a lot of people can have a knowing and speak this, but what's become known to me recently is I can pick out the people, not in judgment, but as an observer, to look at a person and say, I see that you know what you're talking about, but you're not living your truth. And those are two different things. So, I mean, it's so funny to me that I can pick these things out now. I mean, and the more you research and the more I talk to different people, just like you and I are having this conversation, there's always an energy, there's an equal exchange. Like your energies are complementing mine right now and vice versa. So something that you don't have in your frequency, I'm giving you and vice versa. Which a lot of people don't realize. When you walk your path and you're doing your thing and you're being the example, just by virtue of carrying this higher vibrational frequency, you help raise everybody else around you.
Oh, yes. What you do does affect everybody else. It really does. And there was a study, I don't know if you've heard of the 100th monkey.
Yes. We just talked about it last week.
Okay, so I won't repeat it, but I mean, that just shows how we are so connected with the energy. And as we raise our own vibration, it can't help but affect those around us in mass consciousness.
Absolutely. So what about free will? We talked a little bit about it. And you know, do you feel that, you know, we're these little, you know, puppets on a string, or do you actually feel that we talk about choices? We have our own choice to go down this road or that road. I mean,
we definitely have free will. That's how we were created. We were created with free will, and that's why we make the choices. Many people like to play the victim and blame God for, you know, why did this disaster happen? Why did God make this happen? And that's not how it works. God is the energy of love that we live in. But we all have free will to move through our life and make the choices we choose to make. And we may see other people moving through life and making choices that we, in our hearts, know may not be good for them, but we cannot alter their decisions because they have free will. Just as there are spiritual dimensions that work with us that we cannot see with our physical eyes, but they are there and we are very connected to. The angelic realm, for one thing. I work very closely with the angels, and I invite the angels to come and work with me. And I know that you need to invite the angels in. They will be there for you, and I believe everybody has a guardian angel. But they will not overstep your free will to come in and do something for you. You have to truly, from your heart, invite them and ask them. And otherwise, you know, they will be there, but the only time they will interfere is if it is a matter of life and death and it is not your time yet. But so we need to understand that as we open up and send out the invitation for love to join us, to enter into our lives, to move into our hearts, we are expressing our free will in that way. Otherwise, we try to move through life from our emotional, mental self, and we, even if we're not aware of it, we're expressing our free will, but sometimes it feels like we're a hamster on a wheel moving around and around, repeating the same patterns over and over again. And so it is important to understand how we are in the scheme of things, and that we do have this free will.
What about the infringement of free will, such as what if you have a family member or a close friend that has a certain belief or a certain religion and they want to bring you back? Do you feel that their prayers connect you in an energy type of a way that prevents you from moving on? And if so, is there a way to cut that string of energy?
I think prayers do affect everybody. I think our intention with what we are doing, you know, prayers are a very powerful form of energy. But I don't think one person can control another person through prayers or stop the flow of another person's life, because again, it is the free will that they choose. The choices they make is their free will.
Right.
So putting out prayers for somebody, whether in praying to God, what we need to do is open to God's will to be done. And I think when prayers go out that are asking for specific things to occur, that's not true prayer.
Right.
That is sending out a list of demands,
Right.
if you will. And so it's a different form of energy, and
Right.
I don't think it could really interfere with the free will of somebody else.
Well, some of it has to do with judgment. If you are putting out a specific, like, I want this person to come back to this religion, that's because you're judging that person is not in the right place. Instead, you could say a prayer like, from the greatest good of all involved in, what is the greatest thing that can happen with this person? If I make a prayer that could be something like, from the highest source of love and light,
Yes.
Help this person in the greatest way, or something like
Well,
that.
whenever you pray for somebody's highest and best good, it may not be what you expect, but you're releasing
Right.
your control,
Right.
and you're offering it to the universe,
Right.
to God, whatever you choose to call the divine source of love. And that's really the best we can do for anybody,
Right.
is release the control. What the outcome may not be what our expectation
Right.
is, but that doesn't mean that that's not their highest and best good.
Right. So what if, the way parents mostly are, what if they feel that their children, I don't want to allow them to live by themselves and not have food and water and all this kind of stuff. I better help save them by giving them money, and then they become the enabler. So now, instead of them learning a lesson, a soul lesson, because otherwise they would, they get stuck in the same routine that you were saying, because somebody's there trying to help them. Well, if you're, I hate to use the word infringing your free will, but really, if you're assisting them and becoming the enabler, then that doesn't allow them to have that soul growth that they really need.
Exactly.
Because the person that's helping is viewing it as that they're like, oh my God, that's tragic. I can't allow them to live this way. They're my daughter. They're whatever. Well, really, blessings come out of those types of things. Finally, it'll come to a point where the person can't afford to help them, and they move out of it, and the next thing you know, a new job comes their way, or they get a raise, or something as a blessing comes out of that.
Right. And we have to really understand that everybody has their own experiences in their own way, even our children.
Right.
Parents want to take care of their children. It just breaks their heart to see them suffering in any way. But that may be the lesson your child needs to learn at this point in time.
Right.
That we all have a karma that needs to be fulfilled and needs to be lived. And if we try to interfere with somebody's karmic path,
Right.
we're kind of overstepping the boundaries there,
Right.
and not respecting and honoring where they are.
Right. Okay. So it looks like we have a caller now. And let's see if we can get this person on. Caller, welcome to Universal Talk.
Hi. Can you hear me out there?
Yes.
All right. This question is for Reverend Linda. I understand that you're a spiritual healer,
Yes,
correct?
That's right.
All right. Do you have any explanation to this? I had a loved one pass away, and I prayed to her relentlessly, the same prayer, and it asked of two things, which I'm not going to get into detail. But she answered it, I believe, by... it's kind of hard to explain, but the way that I prayed, she answered it, and almost, verbatim and exactly how I asked. And one of the things was written. She wrote a prayer, a question I asked her. She wrote the answer. And do you have any explanation? Have you heard of anything like that?
Well, I've heard of similar things. When our loved ones pass over, they simply have left the physical body. Their energy is still who they always have been. And if you have a bond of love with someone, that bond of love can really allow amazing things to occur. And so your loved one is still with you and still able to communicate with you, and may find ways to do that. And simply that's all it is. The bond of love is still there, and her energy is still there. And so she will still be near you and make herself known. But your prayers, what that does is that lifted your vibration to help match her vibration, because as we leave the physical body, our physical body is a lower form of vibration. And so when our energy leaves our physical body, the vibration raises. And so when you're in prayer or meditation, you're raising your vibration. And that opened the door for her to allow to come through and utilize whatever it was that she did to allow herself to connect with you in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, that answers my question, actually.
Wonderful. Thank you for calling.
Yes, thank you, Reverend Linda.
Thank you, caller.
All right.
Okay. Good answer. All right, so maybe we could move into, we probably got about, 10 minutes left here, maybe a little, around 11 minutes. Maybe we could talk about your intuitive nature. Like, do you feel that you're an intuitive healer as well? Like, whenever you're working on people, do you have this intuitiveness about somewhere in the body? I mean, as a Reiki master, I know that I scan the body, and I can feel whenever there's something out of balance, as well as a knowing that comes into play. But I'm not really tapped in like some of the psychics that are out there that have the verbal, communication with their guides, whether it be angels. But maybe you can speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, intuitive healing, I think everybody has the ability to have that connection, to have that intuitive connection. That's our birthright. That is how we were created, and as we are creators. Intuitive healing is simply about tuning in to the energy. Our energy fields are connected. Our energy fields are overlapping at this point in time here, and we're able to have this connection as we speak. And when you have somebody there that you're working on in a healing session, it is about connecting with their energy and getting a sense. And sometimes you'll get a sense just by listening to your own body. Sometimes your body will tell you what's going on with that person's body. Or sometimes you're drawn to a certain part of their body. Or sometimes as you're moving your hands over the body, you may sense heat or even coolness. But we all need to learn how we each interpret it in our own way. And some of the intuitive development classes I teach, that it's helping people to understand that we don't all interpret this sort of thing exactly the same, and we need to find our own symbolism, our own way of taking in the information. And it's very subtle at times. Many people, I think, if you're not tuned into this sort of thing, you're going to miss it, because it's very subtle. And you may just get a knowing, and it may be a very fleeting thing that comes and goes very quickly. And if you don't pay attention to it, it's gone. But if you do pay attention to it, then you could be amazed at what happens. And when you feel a certain part of the person's body, or you just sense it, and maybe you can ask them about it during or after the session and get a little more feedback, and that helps to move into the healing process for them.
Right. What I was just thinking of when you talked about the energy blending and the connection, I was watching a Ghost Hunter show one time years ago, and they have this infrared camera. I'm not sure if it was infrared or what it was, but the camera showed the aura that was around the person that they were communicating with. And they actually showed the auras on each person. So it proved that we do have this energy around us. We can't pick it up with the visual acuity that we have. I mean, there is certain wavelengths that we can reach from here to here, but beyond that, what's there? So anyway, this camera was picking it up, and they were asking this gentleman a certain question, and I believe it was a psychic that was asking him. But regardless, he started to block the information flow, and all of a sudden his aura started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was yellow. So the colors changed. So as you're saying, there's a reference point with each individual who looks at this, and somebody who doesn't have the training growing up, their reference point for yellow might be somebody else's reference point for purple. So we get mixed up on the communications with our words here on 3D, where we're really saying the same thing, but it's kind of a limitation.
Yes, Yes, exactly. Many people have arguments. They're saying the same thing in different ways, but they're arguing about it before they realize, that they're actually saying the same thing.
Right. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes, a little less left. So, of course, I want to thank you for being on the show. And I want to give you the opportunity to give the viewers any final thoughts you want to leave the listeners with, such as your website. Maybe you could throw that in there too.
Okay, thank you. It was my pleasure to be here. It was a joy to talk with you today, and I'm just very happy to be able to open this door even wider to allow people to understand, hopefully a little bit more as to the work we do,
right.
what we have to offer, and how it really isn't something to be fearful of. It is very connected to whatever it is they have grown up with. We can make that connection. We
right.
can help them to feel at ease.
Right.
If somebody feels a longing within themselves that there's got to be something more than what I've always known, then it is time to take that step.
Right.
It's time to take that step and see what it is. I have people call me sometimes and say, I'm calling you and I don't know why I'm calling you. Because they feel that. They feel that there is something more.
Right.
I need to learn more. And so we begin in that way, and that opens the door for them, just in learning.
All right. So, I'm probably going to get you back on the show here. Not probably, I will if you're willing. We'll talk about discernment, because what you're getting into is, as a practitioner, being discernful of what information to give and plant the seed and not go too far. Okay?
Yes.
All right. Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you.
Let's see. For the viewers out there, I want to let you know about my Universal Talk radio show, which is tonight. There's a teleconference we got going on from 8 to 10, Eastern Daylight Savings Time. By logging on to my website at www.universaltalk.info, we will be discussing 2011. Where are we heading? And thank you all for tuning into our show. If you like the show, dislike the show, any other questions or suggestions of content for future shows, email me at universaltalking@gmail.com. Or if you missed some of the show and you would like to listen to the content, or you'd like to refer a friend, simply log on to my website at www.universaltalk.info. And this is Joe Marra signing off for Universal Talk.